students and parents. So lately in class, we've been working a lot with our multiplication tables. We've been doing drills and practice and memorization, and I'm sure you've noticed all the worksheets we've been taking home in order to help us remember and practice our multiplication tables. And recently in class, we started using that knowledge and all the drills and practice we put in into knowing those multiplication tables by taking it a step further and multiplying two-digit numbers by two-digit numbers. So in class, we generally teach in the traditional way, and I'm going to show you that method and then show you a different method that students can use if they don't really like or understand our traditional method. So as you can see on the board behind me, I have a problem. And this is a two-digit by two-digit number. And we're going to multiply it in the traditional way. So generally what we do is first we take our units and multiply them. So we'll multiply the 4 by the 3, which equals 12. But we can't put a 1 down at the bottom because the 10, the 1 in front of the 2, which would make 12, is in the tens place. So we need to carry the 1 to above the 2. So then what we would do is we would multiply our unit number by our tens place number at the top. And what we would get is 4 times 2 is 8, plus the number we carried, which would be 9. Then the next step we would take is we would multiply our tens number, which in this case is 2. So we would take our 2 times 3, but we know it's a tens place number, so we can't write it in the unit spot. So we use a 0 as a placeholder to remember that our number will have to equal 100 at least, or at least more than 10. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply 2 by 3, which is 6. And then what we're going to do is multiply our tens by tens, which is 2 times 2 in the tens spots, which is 4. Our last order is to add the 92 that we got from our first set of multiplication and the 460 from our second set of multiplication. So then we would get 9 plus 6 is 15, and 4 plus 1 is 5, because we carried the 1 from the 15. So as you can see, this is our traditional way of doing two-digit by two-digit multiplication tables. And when I introduced this in class, I noticed that some of the students got it right away, and they understood it immediately and began carrying and doing all of the functions that they're required to do for this method. But then I also noticed some students weren't really quite getting it. Maybe it was the carrying, maybe it was the place value of the 0 that we needed to put in on the side. But they just weren't really getting it. And that's fine, because all of our brains work differently. And that's why I'm creating this video, to show you another way that students and your children can learn how to do two-digit by two-digit multiplication. So I know for a lot of the students, they're more confident in multiplying smaller numbers or numbers that end in 0 because they're a lot easier to figure out. And I know that all of my students are great at addition because we've been working on it for so long. It just comes really naturally to them now. And secondly, the carrying sometimes is a bit of a problem with students, and this new method combines addition and easy multiplication in addition to eliminating carrying the number. So let's use the same example that we used over here, that way we can see if we got the same answer, but we're going to do it in my new method. So what we have first is we are still going to first multiply the units. So 4 times 3 is 12, but instead of carrying the 1, we're just going to write 12. So next what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the 4 by the 2, But since it's in the tens place, we're going to allow the 2 to be a 20. So we're going to actually forget about the 3 because we've already dealt with the 3. We've already multiplied by it and used it. And we're going to multiply the 4 by the 2 and make it 4 times 20. So 4 times 20 is actually 80. So now we have the numbers 12 and 80 from our first set of multiplication problems. Then what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this 24 and instead of multiplying it by 2 times 3 and 2 times 2, we're actually going to pretend and use that the 2 is in the 10 spot, which is 20. So we're going to multiply 20 times 3, which is 60. And lastly, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say that the 2, since it's in the 10 spot, is representing a 20. And the 2 on the bottom, since it's in the 10 spot, is representing a 20. So 20 times 20 is going to be 400. So as you can see, there's quite a few more numbers on this side, but when we add it up, which is always the last function that we do when we're using a multiplication problem, we can see that 2, and then you can either add the 8 and the 1 together and get 9 plus 6, which is the same as this problem over here. So 9 plus 6 is 15. We carry the 1, and it's still 552. So I know, like I mentioned earlier, when you look at this, you see so many numbers. So that's why I'm going to take a second and break it down a little bit for you, so you can see all of the numbers that I'm using and where I'm getting them from. So over here, we're going to write the problem one more time, but we're going to write it a little differently. So we have 23, which just equals 20 plus 3. So we have 23 times our first unit number, which is 4. So what we're going to have is 4 times 3, which is 12, plus 4 times 20, which is 80. So that's where we get these two numbers from. Then what we have next is we have our tens multiplication spot. So we're going to have 20 plus 3 again, because again, this is representing the tens spot, which is the 2, so 20, and this is the units, which is 3, and then we're actually going to multiply it by the 20, because since the 2 is in the tens spot, we are going to multiply by 20. So instead of thinking of it again as multiplying by a 2-digit, we're just going to take the 20 as a whole. So 20 times 3 is 60, plus 20 times 20, which is 400. And again, we get all of these numbers, which are the same, and you can see exactly where they came from. So 12 plus 80 is 92, and 60 plus 400 is 460. So then, once again, you add these up, and your answer is 552. So I understand that some of you might look at this method, and the first thought you think is, wow, that sounds and looks really confusing. And some of you might look at it and say, that makes total sense to me. And if it's confusing to you, that's fine. If the traditional method works for you, that's great. Use that method. If the new method works better for you, that's also great. Use that method. I just want you to be able to find a method that can help you be successful and solve the math equation. And if neither of these strategies really work, I'm sure we can figure something out in class together during work time. Remember, not everyone thinks the same, and that's okay.